Hi, King's Church. I am really excited to let you know that we have Wendy Mann coming to speak to us at King's at Home on Sunday, the 31st of May. And I'd love to introduce you to her. And I've put some questions to her that she's going to answer for us in a minute that tell you a bit more about her and her ministry. But before I hand you over to Wendy, I just want to commend her to you. She is a wonderful woman who is determined to live in the fullness and freedom of being God's daughter and to see his kingdom come on earth and play her part in making that happen. She has been a huge help and inspiration to me and Anna and other leaders at King's Church to help us do just that. And I'm so encouraged and excited that she's going to come and speak to us all and help us step into all that God has for us. So do tune in. You're sure to be blessed. She's a wonderful blessing. And I'm going to hand you over to Wendy now.
Hi King's Church, my name's Wendy and I live in Bedford. I'm part of the King's Arms Church here. I originally moved to Bedford back in 1996. I moved up from Worthing to train as a PE teacher and I have been here ever since. I've got a beautiful niece who's coming up to 6 years old, two beautiful godchildren, and I'm a big fan of really good coffee and walks by the river here in Bedford. I actually was brought up going to a church. My mum used to take me and my brother to a pretty small Baptist church. Wonderful people, but not much life in the room. I remember singing about feeling full of joy, and I would look around the room and people would look really sad. And I used to think, gosh, there must be more than this. And then when I moved to Bedford, I was invited to do an Alpha course at the King's Arms, and it changed my life. I got to see people bring words of knowledge. I got to see people healed in front of my eyes. I got filled with the Holy Spirit for the first time. I experienced the prophetic, and really God got hold of my heart and put a passion in me to be able to be everything He's called me to be, to do the stuff I'd seen being done on the course, and been on an amazing journey ever since. I have the privilege of working for the King's Arms for a couple of days a week. One of my main roles is to look at leadership development. How do we help people step into all that God's got for them? And the rest of my time, I'm starting out on a new adventure. I recently cut my hours in January from 4 days to 2 days so that I could have more time to travel, basically in response to a lot of prophetic words that God spoke to me about adventure, trusting Him with money, the nations. And so really my big passion is to go and visit churches and to see people come alive, see people realise who God is as their Father, who He says they are as dearly loved sons and daughters, and for them to realise what they carry, that they carry the same Spirit who raised Christ from the dead, and that wherever they go they get to see God's kingdom come. I love seeing people healed. I love seeing God come and meet with people and speak to people. Basically, I'm just passionate about Christians coming alive and being all that God's called them to be. I'm really excited to speak to you guys because I've had the privilege of connecting with Anna and Jen over the last few months, and they've told me about what God's doing among you, and it just sounds really exciting. So any strength I can add to what God already is doing is such a privilege. Something that God's done recently that has blown me away. It's got a bit of a backstory, but I'll try and be brief. Basically, back in July, I needed to have a hysterectomy, which was a very difficult, challenging time. But God spoke to me about bringing much fruit out of that time, and I actually recovered on a ward called the Orchard Ward, and He said that was a prophetic statement of the fruit that would come out of this time. Anyway, fast forward to February that we've just had, a friend of mine told me that she had a vision of me back in August, which was when I was recovering. And I was in my house, I was in the garden of a house I owned. There was a huge apple tree in the garden with loads of apples. And she said, I was in the garden collecting apples in my skirt, but as quickly as I collected them, more apples would grow. And she said, you were just laughing hysterically in this picture. And God really used that image to remind me of what He'd said, that there would be amazing fruit that would come out of that season. Well, anyway, fast forward to just a couple of weeks ago. We're obviously in lockdown. The season I thought I was stepping into has changed. I'm not travelling as much as I would hope. I am having to cancel trips, and I was feeling a bit discouraged. And I'd already thought I want to get a picture painted of the vision my friend had. Anyway, my godson, who's 7, decided to paint me and my housemate a picture. And when it came through, I was blown away. Look, here it is. It's a picture of an apple tree with someone underneath it. And it just amazed me. God is so kind. Even when stuff is confusing, he is still speaking. And it's just blown my brains. You know, the truth is that even though we're in lockdown, God is still working, he's still moving, he still wants to speak to us and meet with us. And I think what I'm in faith for in this season is that God would really work in my heart. I was remembering recently when Samuel anoints David to be king, and he sees all of the rest of Jesse's sons and assumes they'll be the one to be king, but God says, no, I've picked David. And then God says, man looks at the outward appearance, but I look at the heart. And God's just been speaking to me as I've spent time with him about the importance of my heart. He's been showing me where I've got judgments and unforgiveness, and helping me to realise afresh that he is most interested in what's going on inside me. And so I've really got faith that God is going to keep speaking to me, keep challenging me to work stuff through, so that I come out the other end of this more in love with him.